Better. Is a one better a better buy? This is the age-old arm wrestle between buying a one-bedroom unit and a two-bedroom unit. Let's talk about it. Stay tuned.
You like your little intro like that, don't you? Good morning, Mark. Episode 430. Is a one better a better buy? I don't want to say that too many times.
Yes.
Is a one better a better buy than a two better, a three better, a studio has?
Is a one better? And everyone's an expert on this one. It's I think sometimes when the younger generation are talking to their mum and dad, their mum's going, "Oh no, you've got to stick to a two better." Talking to friends and family, they're like, buddy might say, "Nah, mate, you should buy a better quality one better than a shitty two better."
Yeah.
It's there's not a science to it. What do you reckon?
It's interesting, isn't it? It's got to be situational, but I suppose the question is, what's performing better, what's performing worse at the moment? During COVID or the last 12 months, space has been king. Space has been key. Where does that leave
a one better again?
So where does that leave the one betters in the market? What do you think? It's or even the one plus study. There's a big difference.
100.
I think I might have lost you there, Mark.
They can work from home on. Yeah. So people are searching for accommodation where they can work from home. So there's been a bit of a pressure on that one better with rents, and there's been a bit of a pressure on sales prices because you sort of need that little bit more extra room if you're a couple or a single. You just need that little bit extra room, particularly if you're working from home.
Yep. So in those properties, that one better that's got that little tiny study nook or that small study space, that's put it a whole head and shoulders above the other properties, hasn't it? Even for something that is just simply a little corner that's usable space as opposed to your normal generic floor plan.
Even a good balcony. Yeah, absolutely. And I've got to say, if the studio or that budget unit, particularly stuff that's under 50 meters squared, I think that's been squeezed a little bit more in the last 12 months. What's interesting is over a long term, being an agent for 30 years and looking at the performance of a two better in price growth and the performance of a one better in price growth, same.
Yep. Yeah, sure. So they're just moving along parallel to one another.
Yeah. So I think in terms of capital growth, there is not a better buy or a worse buy when you're comparing the one better apartment and the two bedroom apartment. Fact. The last 12 months may tell a different tale because there's that pressure for working from home and having the extra area. James, you just had a recent sale with a couple went out of a one better into a one better.
Yeah, settled yesterday actually. So yeah, that was an interesting one. They went from a 53 meter square to a 64 meter square unit or apartment rather. But the differences were this one had they had a winter garden in both of the apartments, but they had a balcony as well. They had a slightly bigger study room. So even though you don't have a whole lot more space, it's how you can use your space and what it can do for you. So yeah, interesting sort of upgrade where really you're not moving from that 1 to 2 to 4 to home or however you do it. But you don't need to go too much higher. You just bite off as much as you can chew. And they were stoked. So that was a really happy transaction all around.
But they rented out their property. They actually kept both. Interestingly enough, they didn't want an old unit. they lived in a new unit, which was a one better. They didn't want an old unit, two better. They wanted a new unit, so they opted for a big one better. Both working from home on occasions. So the one that they purchased had zones where they could actually one could operate sort of indoor outdoor, like an indoor outdoor balcony. Another could operate through in like a little study which had 4 walls, but not quite enough to be a bedroom. So they spent $800 or $1,000, for the luxury, but that's what COVID's done. That's what COVID's done. Now, rental wise, if I'm an investor, would I do a one better or a two better?
How good's the property? Where is the property? How well did you market the property? I suppose we're getting quite similar yields from your one to your two. It's not making too significant of a difference at this stage. So I don't know. You typically think the bigger, the more attractive, the more people that will come through, but there's still the affordable side of it from the one bedders where, it's a couple $100 a week for your partner and yourself. They're very rentable. You're in DY, we're dense population. We're fortunate that the rental market moves really strong, and it's been really strong throughout the last 12 months and beyond that. So apples to oranges, they're sort of, you're what's good for someone's not good for another, but we're lucky that we're in a place that typically does very, very well, sales and rentals consistently. So it's a hard one to sort of...
I tell you what is interesting, guys and girls, you've got to watch out for 50 metres squared internal.
Yeah.
It's a trap for financing a property when you are buying it. The banks, so basically there's the reason why that it comes undone, or the reason why it's important, is they understand that the bank, there is a risk associated with a smaller unit, or an ultra small unit, like a real small unit. So they sort of turned around and said, okay, we're pegging it at 50 metres squared internally. So there are certain banks that will just give you a hard time internally if it's under 50 metres squared, the one better. You don't have that problem with two bedders. Blanket rule, they're all bigger than 50 metres squared, so you just don't have that problem. But you do have that problem. You can come undone under 50 metres squared. Pretty heartbreaking if you get an offer accepted, and you get a bank valuation, and they turn around and go, wait, mate, no, we can't do this. And just to dig a little bit deeper, the reason why they actually say that is because often you need mortgage insurance. Believe it or not, even if you're not paying mortgage insurance, banks still pay it without your knowledge for you to keep their AAA rating. So that if they've got properties on their books that are under 50 metres squared, banks, there's more risk. So generally they won't take that debt on, or they're a bit more guarded about it. So I do have to say, you may find that as a first home buyer that you do want to stick to over 50 metres squared. And I do think your resale is always going to be better, believe it or not, for that reason. So if you are choosing an apartment, stick with something that's over 50 metre internal as a one better. I think it'll just serve you better for capital growth. Now, James, ultra small apartments, we're talking 32 metres squared internal. We're talking 42 metres squared internal. Because of this reason that they're harder to fund, they are generally a better rental return on money. So you had a studio you just recently sold. Tell us about the rental return.
Yeah, so a 33 metre squared studio had a big 30 metre squared terrace, but this was renting for $460 a week, which is pretty huge. So just a nice couple in there, and it was over 4.5% on the sale price that it ended up at. It sold at 555. And I was sort of comparing that, thinking or wondering what exactly are the rental yields that we have elsewhere. So 33 metres squared, it's a single room, a bathroom, and an internal laundry. It's not a whole lot more. And it's interesting to think that kind of property is going to yield you a far better price in the end.
So if people are running what yield is, you take the purchase price and you take the annual rent and you put it over the top. So the annual rent over the purchase price, annual rent divided by the purchase price will give you a percentage. We call that yield. Now, for some mysterious reason, the rental return or that percentage is much better when you get a unit under 50 metres squared. So for investors, probably not owner occupiers, but for investors, if you want to get a good return on your money, because investors are chasing this at the moment. This has been a problem. I'm going to bring it up. Okay, have a look. This is DY, for example. Have a look what's happened with rental returns in DY.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so this is over a 10-year period. Over a 10-year period, the rental returns have... So the rental returns have not fallen in terms of rents. So the value of the rent has actually continued to rise, but the value of the property has rose further. So your percentage return on your property is actually lower. So what's interesting is if who bought that property? Was that an owner occupier or an investor?
It was an owner occupier who was a first home buyer. Really interestingly.
Yeah, wow.
But it was one where, because of the nature of the size of the property, all of the people that came through and put offers down, their banks were really, they were against it. They wouldn't do it. We were fortunate enough that this purchaser was with NAB. NAB is the only of the big banks that I'm aware of that will lend on internal plus balcony or internal. So that meant that hers did move it past that 50 meter squared level, but she had a 33 meter squared internal. So every other bank would say no to everyone immediately. So it was really tricky. And it slows down the campaign a little bit.
So signing off, is a one better, in conclusion, is a one better a better buy than a two better?
Good capital growth at the moment. It's not as popular at the moment. People are wanting more space. Maybe you can find a slightly better price in this competitive market. At the moment, I would say, I don't want to say yes or no. It's a close one. Small space, have an additional little bit of room elsewhere, then yes, it will be a great buy. It will be a better buy than a two better, especially your generic entry level. What do you think?
And I reckon, and this is after 20 or 30 years of experience, after meeting thousands of buyers, thousands of sellers, witnessing thousands of sales of ones and two betters, I reckon they're straight down the bloody middle.
Yeah, right.
I'm 50-50 on a one better, and I own both. So I'm an advocate of both. I've tried both myself. I've watched clients, and at the end of the day, guys and girls, whether it is a one better or a two better, they just perform as well. Try to stick over the 50 metre squared internally so they don't have to swap around with banks. If you are under 50 metre squared on one better, use a mortgage broker, and they have got the ability to swing you to one bank or the other. Unfortunately, if you do go to one bank, like your own bank, which may be a Westpac, then you don't fit in with that box. They don't really have anywhere to go from that, but a broker does.
Yeah, good tip. All right, perfect. Signing off. Thank you, Mark.
Have a beautiful day, everybody. Better one, better one, better, 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 better one, better, 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 better.